I keep seeing coaches with 50,000 followers who can't even seem to sell an offer at $3,000. And then someone with just 2,000 followers sell out completely in 48 hours. And the difference here isn't necessarily within the audience size, and it's not the content quality, and it's not even how good the offer is. It's just that one of them owns a category in their market's mind. Essentially, they understand buyer psychology. And the other one, well, is just kind of there. People know them, but they're not the first option. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how buyers actually make decisions and why most personal brands are invisible to that process. And I'm going to show you also the 5 signals that make a brand so magnetic that people come to you pre-sold. And this isn't theory, guys. Like, this is the psychology behind every buying decision your audience has ever made without you. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Moayad Sallabi, and I've made over 1.3 million with my personal brand with just 21,000 subscribers and only 16,000 followers. And it just shows you don't need to have 100k subscribers or 100k followers to make a lot of money. Because if you're able to build a high intent magnetic brand, everything absolutely changes, and you're able to then sell packages for 5k, 5k, 3k, 2k. And we also running a low ticket offer that eventually also upsold into these type of packages. And today I'm going to show you exactly how I did that. Here's some of the content as well that we were able to just completely blow up. These were all high intent pieces of content. But there's something incredibly important. Before you start producing content like this, that starts getting 158k views and starts bringing in leads through the comments, etc., you need to understand something imperative. And this is understanding the psychology of how a buyer decides and how the audience decides. Because if you don't understand how a buyer decides, if you don't understand the core foundation of human psychology, then how are you going to be able to make, first and foremost, content that's engaging enough for people to want to consume it? And how are you going to be able to actually make content that's valuable enough that people actually want to hear? Because here's the thing. You can make a lot of valuable content, but is it valuable to your ICP? Is it valuable to the individual that you're trying to target? And that's the main thing. Because there's certain things that is valuable, but some people don't want to hear it. So this is important. And I looked at the system and system 2 framework because this is a really important one. This one was actually founded by someone called Daniel Kahneman, right? Very well-known marketer in the olden days. And he identified essentially 2 systems the brain uses to make decisions. He identified that there's system 2, which is essentially slow, logical, deliberate, and it's what you use when you're doing maths or carefully evaluating like a contract. And then you've got system 1, and this is kind of the fast, automatic, emotional. It's essentially what you use for everything else. Your brain is 80% of the time in system 1. And why your brain is pretty much most of the time in system 1 is because if your brain has to consistently always consciously think and analyze and assess things, your brain will just go into cognitive load and it will literally just fry up like an engine. It won't be able to operate. This is why your brain just works unconsciously all the time. A lot of subconscious things happen, thoughts, like even just movements, that's all subconscious. You need to understand this when you're making content. You need to understand this when you're building a personal brand, and I'll show you exactly why in a second. You see, a lot of people make content that gets filed under system 1. People typically, when they're scrolling content, are in system 1, meaning that they're just scrolling. It's fast. They're not really thinking. It's very subconscious. But when people actually look at a video, and if you look at a very high performing video, typically that's an outlier, that's gotten a large amount of views, that's gotten a large amount of engagements. The reason why it performed very well is that it triggered system 2 within people. So it made people stop, think, oh, interesting. And it made them think, it made them analyze, it made them assess, it made them engaged. You need to be able to understand how can we flip people from system 1 to system 2. You want the brain to essentially say, on system 1, typically it's like, I've seen this before, and they kind of just scroll. Nothing really hooks them in. You want the brain to say, oh, interesting. And you want them to stop. You want them to pay attention. You want them to then follow you and then eventually buy. Here's the thing, guys. Like, this isn't a new idea. The smartest people in marketing and branding have been saying this, like, I've been saying multiple versions of this for decades. It's just that coaches, consultants, and just modern businesses in general, course creators, just haven't really caught up to this kind of a thing yet. They're focused a lot on copying everyone else and some of them do get lucky because you can copy your way to the top. But if you want to be a one of one brand, if you want to be up there with these guys that are making 500K, 600K, $1 million months, these guys paved the way for themselves by not copying, by innovating. And they did the exact 5 frameworks that I'm going to show you here within this video. Framework number 1, the mind can only hold one name per category. A category, essentially, guys, is a subsect of a sub-niche. I want you to break it down like this. Typically, what ends up happening is that you have a niche. This is the broader market that you target. Out of that, you want to then just carve out a small niche. So let's say, for example, you're targeting all B2B people. Then here you're targeting, like, I don't know, you're targeting, let's just say you're targeting, your whole niche is coaches. You're targeting a subsect of that, which is going to be fitness coaches. But within fitness coaching, you can target an even smaller subsect, which is what I like to call a category. And why category is very, very important is that typically you can come out with something that is packaged in a new way. You come out with a unique mechanism or pieces of information or certain knowledge, strategies, frameworks that's packaged in a new way. And this is how you create your own category. People end up looking at your method, they end up looking at your thing, your brand, and they're like, you know what? I've tried so many fitness coaches in the past, but this guy seems to do things differently. And this is what you this is what you need to do. I want you to think of it like this. The minute I tell you, or the minute I ask you, name a soda brand or name a fizzy drink, whatever flipping you call it in your country, that's brown. Straight away, your mind is going to think of what? It's going to think of Coca-Cola. Why does it not think of Pepsi? Pepsi came after Coca-Cola, by the way, and there's a lot of other brown drinks that came after. But it's because Coca-Cola captured that part of your brain first. Coca-Cola came in first and they established themselves as that drink first. So in order for you to actually win, which is what 7-Up did, in order for you to actually really get up there on the ladder, is to come out and do something completely different. While Pepsi copied Coca-Cola, right, 7-Up came and did something completely different, and they marketed it totally differently. They packaged it totally differently. And this is what you need to do. Now, a lot of the time, you can't actually change the feature or the product in itself, but you can change the way that you deliver the message, the way that you can deliver the service, etc. And we're going to look at that in a second. You see, the first person within a category is the one that owns the mental slot. Straight away, when you think of them, when you think of something, you think of them straight away. Then you have all the competitors, all just on the bottom of the ladder, essentially trying to compete for the other positions. The next framework is by Byron Sharp. And this is that distinctiveness always beats differentiation. See, what I actually found is that most people who buy a brand don't have strong beliefs about why it's better. They're not loyal because they've evaluated all the options and concluded that this one is specifically superior. They just buy because it comes to mind easily when the need of it arises, and it feels familiar and safe, and they can recognize it instantly without mental effort. This is incredibly important. It just shows that you don't actually need to be the best at what you do. You don't have to have the best results or the best information, although that's very, very important, and you do need to deliver a good product or you do need to deliver a good service. What's more important than that is actually being distinctive, that you're different to everyone else. Because in a saturated market and in a world where everyone is doing the exact same thing, by you coming out and doing something differently, this is where people give you even a thought in the first place. Because you see, now we're not even like, we used to always say we are in a trust recession, etc., which is true. But now I also believe that we're in an attention recession, which means that people don't even want to give you their attention anymore. Whereas people before used to give attention, now they only want to give it to the best of the best content. Because if you think about it, content now has become more and more extreme, more and more valuable than ever. YouTube videos are so packed with value in comparison to before. People used to drop like a nugget or two. People are now dropping 5-hour courses for free. Before, where there was like cool videos, now we've got like Red Bull type videos where people are doing extreme stuff. Anyways, how do we become more distinctive though? Well, you can do it in 5 different ways. You can change your framing. You can change the language that you use. You can become different in your tone. You can become different in your setting. If everyone in your niche or your industry is recording things in a specific way or in a specific setting, you're recording in a different setting. If everyone's using a specific format of video, you're recording in a different format. If everyone looks the same, you change your looks. There's a reason why I wear a white cap in every single piece of video. It's because it makes me distinctive, that when people see a guy in a white cap next time, and they've seen my videos multiple times on their feed, they'll remember me straight away. Your language. So if you're so a lot of fitness coaches, right, don't necessarily have the best like vocabulary in their content. They use very, very generic content that targets their ICP. But then you have someone like Jeff Nippard, for example, that came out and started using very, very scientific vocabulary, very, very in depth. This is how he built a one-on-one distinctive personal brand. Is that he did something totally different to everyone else. When everyone else was focusing on the same motivational stuff and calorie deficits, etc., this guy came out and was like, "F this! I'm going to do this more distinctive, and I'm going to change my tone. I'm going to change the way I present things. I'll change my format." You see, what actually works is building distinctiveness, a set of signals so consistent and recognizable that your name becomes the automatic answer to a specific question in your market's mind. And that's not built through volume, it's built through consistency of the right signals repeated over time. The third framework is from a book actually called Play Bigger, Category Kings Capture 76% of Value. Essentially, in 2016, a group of Silicon Valley investors and operators wrote a book, and they called it Play Bigger. And they studied hundreds of companies and found that the category kings, as we spoke about earlier, the companies that define and own a category, capture on average 76% of the total market value in that category. Like not 30%, not half of it, 76%. And then the companies in second, third, fourth place, they all fought for the remaining 24%. That dynamic, guys, doesn't only apply to tech companies. It applies to every market where there's a clear category leader. I'm going to tell you why content volume is the wrong answer, because this is what most gurus will tell you. They'll tell you just keep pumping out videos. Instead of doing one, do two. Instead of doing 2 videos, do 3 videos. Yeah, why is there some people that have posted like 100 videos, for example, like Nick's setting, where he's posted probably 100 reels in his whole lifetime, yet he's performing better than 99% of people within the info space? Why so? You see, when all the gurus tell you post more, improve your hooks, be consistent, give more value, they're assuming essentially that your perception foundation is already solid, that you've already answered the positioning questions. Most people go straight to the end, right? Your personal brand is essentially built on top of your foundation, which is your positioning, right? Most people go to here, which is all the stuff about editing, all about the hooks, be consistent. They forget this whole chunk. This is really, really important, right? Because there's another interesting thing as well, which is a concept from Seth Godin. Seth Godin has a concept called the purple cow. And essentially what it is, imagine like driving through the countryside, you'd notice a purple cow immediately, and then you'd never stop noticing regular cows the same way again. And in a crowded market, being remarkable, literally worth remarking about, is the only marketing strategy that compounds, which is why you got people like in the trading space, you got TJR. He came out and did something very, very different to everyone else. His personality really, really shined. That's where he came out. He's the purple cow. FX Alex G, another example of a purple cow within the trading space. You see, the problem now with most content advice is that it teaches you to be a better brown cow, and better production quality, better hooks, and more consistent post schedule. And brown cows, no matter how good they are, disappear into the field. The amplification problem. And here's the most dangerous truth about content volume, is it amplifies whatever perception already exists. You see, most people think that more content is better, and that there's no such thing as bad content. But there is such thing as bad content, because you're amplifying everything that you do. Content is just an amplifier of what you currently have. If you post content that's not landing with your ICP, and your ICP watches one piece of content, then they'll watch a second one. After a while, if it's not hitting their pain points, if it's not belief shifting them, and if it's not valuable enough for them, what ends up happening is that they'll ignore you. They'll ignore you. And this is important, because not only is it important in the buyer's mind, but it's also important for the algorithm, because the Instagram algorithm will be like, well, this ICP doesn't seem to be interested. It starts showing it to other people. And it'll start showing it to people that is not within your ICP. You see why it's so important to actually engineer the correct position and the correct perception for your audience before actually posting anything, because it's very dangerous. Your content, like bad piece of content, 2 to 3 bad pieces of content can undo everything hard that you've worked for. I'm going to give you guys the solution for this, a really, really practical framework, right? This is called perception engineering. This is what I specialize in. You see, before you build the content, which most people jump to here, they build the content layer, and then they try to build the conversion layer. They forget the perception layer. You see, the perception layer is the number one thing you need to build before you start creating content, and then before you start trying to convert people from your content. And you do this by first and foremost asking yourself question number 1. What category does your audience system 1 currently file you under? You need to understand what's my audience currently fighting me under? And you do this by understanding your current market's belief systems, right? You need to understand what's the current belief within the market at the moment. So if you're a fitness coach, most likely, if you're generic, you're going to be filed under the typical coach that tells you you're going to lose 8 kilos in 9 weeks by, going in a calorie deficit, etc., etc. The honest answer, guys, for most coaches, course creators, etc., is that one of the people who teaches X, like most people will just look at you and be like, this guy just teaches personal branding. This guy just teaches high-ticket sales. And that's a topic, guys. It's not a category that you own. And topics are commodities. Categories are the asset. Because someone like me, for example, people don't just look at me and say, this guy just teaches personal branding. They say, this guy teaches perception engineering. He teaches the imperative step before worrying about the content, before worrying about the conversion. And this is my category. Anybody that tries and teaches perception engineering in the future essentially would just be falling under anything that I teach, right? So for example, a topic would be an Instagram growth coach. A category would be the person who teaches course creators to be perceived as the only option in their market. You see, the second one isn't a long description of the same thing. It's actually fundamentally a different mental slot. One has 50 competitors, the other has one. Here's the interesting part. There's something called psychology as well, called mental anchor. Basically, if I think of something, it triggers a certain set of emotions, it triggers a certain set of beliefs, etc., etc. So if I tell you Forex traders, it triggers what? It triggers Lambos, it triggers scam, it triggers etc., etc. But if you package yourself in something that's completely differently that people can't associate with anything, now the market doesn't set the beliefs. Your category doesn't set the market's beliefs. There's no anchor anymore because you've opened up a new category that no one has any preconceived notions about at all. And this is incredibly important. The second thing you need to ask yourself is, what's your perception gap? The perception gap is the distance between how you're currently seen and how you need to be seen to command the price, attract the clients, and build the business you actually want. A is where your current perception is, right? B is your target perception, how you need to be seen. And guys, this is where all the work is done. This is in everything. You need to engineer everything, like how you speak, the way you show up, your setting, the people that you surround yourself with in your content, linguistic guardrails, essentially things that you shouldn't even be speaking about within your content. Because if you say certain things, a lot of you focus on what to say, but you don't focus on what not to say. But if there are certain things that you shouldn't be using, certain language you shouldn't be using, because you need to attract a certain type of people. If I'm trying to attract, right? If I'm trying to attract really, really high net worth individuals, the words that I use are very important. I wouldn't say money, I would say liquidity, right? I'd say assets, etc., etc. There's certain words that you need to use. Guys, engineering your perception happens like everywhere. It happens in your content. It happens in the things that you say. It happens once again in your setting, in your tone. There's so many things that you need to engineer. But I'm going to give you 3 questions that you need to ask yourself. The typical generic content creator will ask himself these 3 things. What do I want to say? What do I want to show? And what content should I be posting? What you need to ask yourself before creating any content is, what is my audience looking for? What do they need? And what do they know that they need? Because the problem is, if you try to sell them on something that you know they need, but they're not aware of, it's going to be very, very difficult. But if you can sell them on something that they know they need and they're also aware of, this is a much, much easier sell. Another thing you need to understand is, what mental shortcuts are they typically using to evaluate me? So very, very similar to the trading coach example. The minute they see kind of like Miami lifestyle, they associate it with this. So you need to understand what are the mental patterns that these guys are typically falling into. And the way to do this is just analyze your competition. What's my competition doing? How do people feel about my competition? And now what do I do differently to my competition? It's very easy. You look at the masses and you do the exact opposite of what the masses do. You take contrarian positions. That's how you do it. And as long as you can back your contrarian position and you produce good results, that's how you build a really, really strong magnetic personal brand. And then you also need to look at, what does my ideal buyer already believe about my market? Because if you understand what your buyer believes about your current market, you can speak to them in a way that no one else speaks to them before. Because the way that you trust a doctor typically. You don't trust a doctor because, like, no one has ever trusted a doctor because they've went and they've looked into the accolades and they've looked at the degree and you've never asked for proof, etc. You trust a doctor because he's giving you a diagnosis of the symptoms and he seems to understand your problem so well that you just believe him. Because when someone is a professional and when someone's an expert at something, all they need to do is just explain your problem to you in a way that makes sense. And you're like, damn, that's exactly what I feel like. Damn, how does he get this? And that's how you build authority. So this is why it's so important to understand your ideal buyer. Understand what they're believing. Your audience, guys, isn't sitting there analyzing every post and like reading every caption. So I don't want you to mistake that for perception engineering. A lot of perception engineering is just subconscious. They're just making snap judgments based on pattern recognition. And you need to really understand that. Because when your perception layer is engineered correctly, 3 things shift. This is how you'll know if you have perception engineering nailed down properly. First, your content starts working harder with less volume because every piece of content is reinforcing a clear, distinctive perception rather than adding noise to a blurry one. You could post half as much and convert even more. Second, you attract pre-sold clients. People arrive on sales calls already convinced you're the right person, not because you ran better ads or wrote a better sales page, because their system 1 already files you as the only logical choice. And third, price resistance drops. When you're in a category of 1, there's no comparison. You're not competing with the €97 course on the same topic because you're not in the same category anymore. The conversation changes from is this worth it to how do I get started? The category of 1, guys, is built by what problem you solve, who you solve it for, and how you solve it in your own unique lens. Once you figure these 3 things out, you can find your category of 1. Guys, I hope I've brought your attention finally to the issue, because a lot of you probably thought that the issue is within your content. A lot of you probably thought that the issue is within your acquisition systems, within your sales systems. And I can guarantee you that it's not, because I've worked with even guys doing 7 figures a year still don't have this fully knuckled down and nailed down. And once we've done that, we've been able to see 2 to 3x in their revenue by actually implementing these systems and understanding this. I go incredibly in depth on my channel within these concepts. This is just one of these videos. There's so much other in-depth videos that will help you bit by bit. I don't hold back on my YouTube whatsoever. So I recommend you to subscribe. Go ahead and watch all the other YouTube videos that I have up, because once you've watched all of them, you're going to get a very, very, very solid grasp of what to do next and how to finally scale your personal brand. Now people just buying without even needing sales calls.